May 1940, Western Europe. Just months before, Poland was defeated by Germany in a matter of weeks. France and Great Britain had declared war, but made no significant attacks on into Western Germany, and were lulled into a false sense of security. In a matter of weeks, France was on her knees, and Great Britain was preparing to evacuate her armies from the mainland against the German blitzkrieg. How did the British get forced into this position? What did it take to rescue hundreds of thousands of men from becoming prisoners of war? This is the miracle of Dunkirk. Following a period called the Phoney War, when the Germans, French and British did not undertake any significant military operations, the German war machine was unleashed on Western Europe on May 10, 1940, with the panzers and following armies advancing into the Low Countries. For the assault, the Germans numbered up to 3.3 million men for the ground forces alone, not including the Luftwaffe, Kriegsmarine or the SS. The Germans employed a revolutionary new tactic called the Blitzkrieg, which used a combined arms doctrine, centering around the tank rather than the infantry, supported by artillery and aircraft. Their emphasis on radio communications in their tanks also gave them an edge against the Allies. To defend against the onslaught, the French had around 3.3 million men, and the British had deployed around 450,000 soldiers in the British Expeditionary Force, or BEF. The French could also count on the formidable Char-B heavy tank, whilst the British fielded the Matilda II, which was impervious to all but the heaviest German anti-tank guns. Belgium was quickly overrun following the capture of the strategic fortress of Eben-Emael, and Rotterdam was heavily bombed, leading to the surrender of the Netherlands. The Allies expected a repeat of the Germans' moves of World War I. They expected a hook through the Low Countries to invade France, and advance to meet the threat when the Germans made their move. They expected a repeat of the trench warfare, just like the First World War. But the Germans had no intention of fighting in this manner. Unbeknownst to the Allies, the Germans massed 3 panzer divisions against their lines through the lightly defended Ardennes forest, which was considered impassable terrain for armored vehicles. On 13th of May, all hell broke loose on this sector of the Allied line. With support from Luftwaffe dive bombers and artillery, the panzers were unleashed on the unsuspecting French defenders. The Germans smashed through the French line and poured through the breach, and in the process trapping large French and British forces in northeastern France. The sheer speed and ferocity of their assault stuns the Allies. French units attempted to resist the German assault, however the confusion sowed by the rapidly advancing panzers with their accompanying infantry and artillery ensured that they could not put up a coordinated defense. By May 14th, the Germans entered the Belgian capital of Brussels, and by May 17th, the panzers had reached the English Channel, near the town of Abbeville in northern France. This was a critical moment of the campaign. By reaching the coast, the Germans have effectively split the Allied forces in two, and encircled a significant portion of the BEF. Unfortunately for the BEF, there were no French forces available to counter the German thrust, a fact confirmed to a horrified Winston Churchill. Lord Gort, commander of the BEF, decided that evacuation across the Channel was the best choice he could make. Although the British counterattacked at the Battle of Arras, this ultimately failed, but at the very least, gave the Germans cause to be nervous. The British retreated around the port of Dunkirk, which was the last port available since Boulogne and Calais had already been sealed off by the Germans. Wanting to keep the situation in France a secret at home, this was not initially published by the press, but the Archbishop of Canterbury led prayers for our soldiers in dire peril in France. The British began the evacuation under chaotic conditions, with abandoned vehicles blocking the way. The British received an unexpected break when the German High Command issued a halt order around Dunkirk on 23rd of May. This was a crucial opportunity that allowed the Allies to commence evacuating their troops. There was no such order given to the Luftwaffe, however, and they continued to bomb and attack the British troops during the evacuation, heavily bombing Dunkirk on 27th of May. The British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, ordered the evacuation on May 26, 1940, with the British Navy sending out ships including cruisers and destroyers to ferry out the troops. However, hundreds of fishing and other private boats also came to help ferry out the troops. These became known as the Little Ships, and these would become known as the Dunkirk Spirit. All in all, the fleet assembled by the Royal Navy and the Little Ships totaled 861 ships and boats. The Royal Air Force, or RAF, was ordered to air cover the evacuation, running patrols and engaging the Luftwaffe during the operation. The RAF exacted a heavy toll from Luftwaffe bombers, however, as most of the dog fights were away from the beaches, many soldiers were unaware of the RAF's efforts to protect them. The efforts of the Royal Navy and the little ships were not in vain. By 4th of June, 338,000 British and other Allied soldiers had been evacuated from the beaches. Unfortunately, they had to leave almost all of their weapons and equipment behind, including tanks and trucks. The rear guard fought to allow the evacuation to proceed, however 40,000 troops surrendered on 4th of June. In the end, of the 861 vessels that took part, 243 was sunk, and an unknown number was damaged. The RAF reportedly lost around 145 aircraft, whilst the Luftwaffe lost between 156 to 198 aircraft. But the evacuation was deemed a success. Great Britain had successfully rescued experienced and trained men from the BIF, which meant that they could again fight another day. It also was a great morale boost for the British people, with Winston Churchill calling the success of the evacuation a miracle in his "We Shall Fight on the Beaches" speech on the 4th of June, 1940. The Dunkirk evacuation was a critical turning point of the war, as it allowed the British to fight back, especially after June 1944 in the D-Day landings and beyond. Heinz Guderian, a German general, considered Hitler's failure to order a timely assault on Dunkirk to be one of the major German mistakes on the Western Front. The Dunkirk evacuation was caused by the rapid deterioration of the Allied fortunes in the early part of the war. However, the effort of the Royal and French navies, as well as the little ships, ensured that the British and other soldiers lived to fight another day.